I'm so grateful that you all came here. To me, it's a sign that the vision that we all share is gaining traction. I'm fond of saying that it's an embarrassment that I have a career. I talk about things like trust and cooperation, and I should not have a career. There should be no demand for those things, right? But the fact that everything goes wrong, you have to take responsibility. It means speaking truth to power. It means standing up to protect the people you care about, which means you could get in trouble, you could lose your job. The risks are real. That's why it's not for everyone. The reason we call you leaders is not because you're at the top. The reason we call you leaders is because you chose to go first. First towards the unknown, first towards the danger. When something happens in a workplace, and we feel the pressure coming down on us, we all kind of stand there. And it's the person who says, I got this. That's why we call you leader. It's the one who stepped forward. And here's something remarkable. If you do that, others follow. If you do that, others follow. A Navy SEAL was asked, what kind of person makes it through BUDS, makes it through SEAL selection, which is this grueling, multi-week experience where they have to lift telephone poles and sit in freezing cold water to try and make it through to become Navy SEAL. And he responded, I cannot tell you the kind of person that makes it through, but I can tell you the kind of person who doesn't make it through. He said the preening leader who likes to delegate everything, none of those guys make it through. He said the star college athlete who's never truly been tested to the core of his being, none of those guys make it through. He said some of the guys that show up with huge muscles and tattoos to show how tough they are, none of them make it through. He said some of the guys that make it through are skinny and scrawny. Some of the guys that make it through, you'll see them shivering out of fear. He says that all the guys that make it through, when they're emotionally exhausted, when they are physically exhausted, some way, somehow, they're able to dig down deep inside themselves to find the energy to help the person next to them. Those are the guys who make it through. In other words, one of the highest performing elite teams on the planet prove that it's not about being the strongest, the smartest, or the fastest. It's about the one with the strength of character to help the person next to them.
Culture together.
Yeah.
Have you been advising any large companies on helping them build this kind of culture?
Yeah. So the question is, when I talk about having worked in a couple of organizations, there's a lot of talk about culture, she said. And what I talk about sounds like culture. And have I advised any large companies about their culture? The answer is the ones who will listen. So yes, but not enough. What happens in the very large organizations tends to be that there's a middle high rung that gets it, and the more senior rungs are still quite resistant. For many reasons, overwhelming pressures from outside sources, overwhelming pressures from boards, and then misaligned incentive structure. Remember, for a lot of organizations, when they announce layoffs, the stock price goes up, and the CEO is compensated by the value of the equity. That's a problem. Right? But I think the bigger issue is not that companies are talking about culture. The bigger issue is they don't know what culture is. Right? Putting ping pong tables in your office is not culture. You know, companies will invite me over to look at their great culture and show me their amazing gourmet kitchen. Like, that's not culture. Right? Culture is the character of a group of people. So we will describe the character of our friends, right? We say they have high moral fiber. That person has a strong character, which means high integrity, trustworthy, etc. But when you put a group of people together, the way we describe the character of a group of people, we call it culture. And strong cultures have high moral fiber, high integrity, honesty. And weak cultures, regardless of how many ping pong tables and how gourmet their kitchens are the total opposite, and they're untrustworthy. And though they may be nice people, charming, and totally fun to hang out with, as the SEALs say, I wouldn't trust them with my wife or my money. Right? That's how they sort of talk about trust. Right? Trust on the battlefield, but I wouldn't trust them with my wife or my money. So they'd be good at what they do, but I wouldn't be vulnerable. Right? there's so much talk about get the right people on the bus, right? Like it's a game of chess that we just move people on and off. But nobody ever talks about which bus, who's driving the bus, in which direction is the bus going, right? That's part of culture. It's part of shared vision and shared values. It's not just about putting people in the right seats. Yes, that's important. Second, but unfortunately, we hire too quickly, we fire too quickly. Great organizations actually hire very, very slowly and rarely if ever fire. Because they're so protective of the culture. So I'll give you an example of an organization that understands its culture and how it manifests. So it's a true story. A group of military recruiters went to a high school. And the Army recruiter stands up and says, let me tell you why you want to be in the Army. It's a beautiful Chicago. The naval recruiter stands up and says, no, he's wrong. Let me tell you why the Navy's better. This is like corporations telling you why you want to work for them, right? The Air Force recruiter stands up and says, they're both crazy. Let me tell you why the Air Force is better. The Marine recruiter, with no PowerPoint, stands up, walks to the edge of the stage, looks around the auditorium, and says, nope, I don't want any of you. He says, you have to understand, the Marine Corps is the most difficult thing you will ever do in your entire life, emotionally or physically, and I don't think anyone in here is tough enough to be in my Marine Corps. If you think I'm wrong, I'll be in the back of the room. Two things happen there. He's putting up a filter. He only wants one kind of person to enlist. He only wants somebody with a moral fiber, a toughness, to join, as he describes it, my Marine Corps. And one of the things the Marines do that's so sophisticated, and the complete opposite of lots of corporate America, they take their best Marines off the front line and make them recruiters. In a lot of corporate America, if you're a recruiter, it's like a dead-end job, right? If you're a recruiter, people are like, right? It is the most important job. It is the first line of building and protecting the culture. And the Marines take the best Marines off the front lines, make them recruiters, and it's considered an honor to be a recruiter. Because what the Marine Corps says is, we trust you to protect what we have built for 200 years. Don't screw it up. Because if you screw it up, the organization will break. They take it deeply personal to protect their Marine Corps. So culture is a thing that we hold dear, and we are very, very cautious when we let in, because it is our moral fiber. And I don't believe most companies get just how intense it is. Yes?
Right. So as a...
You give me way too much credit, right? My journey was born out of pain, right? So I had a little business, and from all superficial standards, I was doing okay. I had amazing clients, made an okay living, owned my own business, American Dream stuff, right? The problem was I didn't want to wake up and do it again. I completely lost my passion for what I was doing 4 years in. And people gave me stupid advice like, do what you love. You're like, thank you. I'm doing the same thing and I don't love it anymore. Find your bliss. Follow your passion. Wonderful. Thank you. I know exactly what to do with that advice, right? And so what I did was I kept it to myself because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to admit that I wasn't happy, given that superficially everything looked just fine. And almost all of my energy went in pretending that I was happier, more successful, and more in control than I felt, which is very, very, very lonely, right? And it wasn't until a very good friend of mine, it wasn't until a very, very good friend of mine came to me and expressed concern for my well-being. Something's wrong. Are you okay? And it was that act of concern that gave me the courage to face my demons. And there was a confluence of events that happened where I made this discovery, this naturally occurring pattern that exists in the biology of human decision making. I met somebody at an event whose dad was a neuroscientist, and she was telling me all about neuroscience, and I was listening. That's how the limbic brain and neocortex thing came up. I sat next to good people. And that's when it dawned on me. I knew what I did, I knew how I did it, but I didn't know why. And I became obsessed with understanding my own why. And it was only a tool to help me, and it worked. My passion was restored to levels that I had never experienced before. My confidence skyrocketed. I felt calm again. And so I did what anybody would do when you discover something beautiful. I shared it with the people I love. You see a great movie, you read a great book, what do? You tell your friends to read it or see it. That's what you did. That's what I did. So I told my friends. And my friends started making crazy life changes. And some of them would invite me to share it with their friends. I literally would stand in someone's apartment in New York City, and they would order one of those, one of those supermarket celery dip trays. And I would stand in someone's living room and talk about this thing called the why, and I would help people find their why for $100 on the side. And it's all I ever talked about. Somebody says, what do you do? I told them what I believe. I became obsessed. Every meeting I had, I'm drawing circles and napkins, right? I was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Okay, it's from the 80s. Half the people in here have no idea what I'm talking about. Do you know who Richard Dreyfuss is? Anyway. I'm like 9 years old. That's what it was. And the more I talked about it, the more people who believed what I believed said, I want to introduce you to something. And I approached it with the scientific method. I'm like, I have a theory. Let's see if it works. I'm going to fail, but let's try it. And it kept working in small business and big business. And it worked in this industry and that industry. And it worked in politics. And it worked in the military. And it just kept working. And I still, everything. How I met my publisher. I had an agent. I have an agent. But he didn't introduce me to Adrian. Somebody who heard about me said, I want to introduce you to a publisher. And I went, okay. I showed up for a meeting, talked about what I believed. I'm a nobody. And 3 days later, he offers me a book deal. Right? That's what happened. I just obsessed about talking about what I believe, what I believe, what I believe. And people who believed in me kept introducing me to other people who were taking bets on me. It takes a long time to become an overnight success, right? Like, this has been going on for a decade. Right? I started talking about the why in early 2006. Right? This is not like, where did he come from? Like, I've been slogging away at this stuff, right? And I've been refining and practicing. So it's a journey. It's a journey, and I'm still learning every single day.
Your safety is more important than the safe environment.
Of course.
So I'm wondering, is this just impossible for my country or not?
So there's two types. Thank you very much. So I love it when people stand up and say, people fear change. No, they don't. People fear sudden change, right? But gradual change is fine, right? Sudden change usually comes in the way of a revolution or a reorg, right? And sudden change is usually violent, and there's always a counter-revolution, right? Immediately. And it forces us to retract, right? Evolution is more gradual, little changes at a time. Nobody fears anything, and before you know it, the system is completely different, and there's no turning back, and nobody even knows how you got there, right? So the stuff that I write about, the only reason it seems like it's through a Western lens is because I live in the West, right? And so the examples I choose are Western examples because that's where I live, right? What I'm writing about is human beings, and as long as the human beings are in the organization, as long as relationships still exist, it all applies because it's biology and anthropology. That's all it is. And where the differences happen is in the tactics, the implementation at the what level. And absolutely, there are cultural nuances and cultural differences, without a doubt, but not at the why level, but just at the tactical level, right? And so, what you have in some countries, especially ones that have gone through years and years and years of dictatorship and have now no longer have it or something like that, is the fear is still there, and there's still uncertainty, and it's going to take years. It's basically a macro version of a toxic company that just got bought out by a really good company. Like, it's going to take a long time for the people to build up trust again, to take the risk of like speaking out and realize nothing happens. But the problem is, if something happens, no one's going to take the risk. And so what you tend to find is diamonds and coal mines. You tend to find a glimmer here and a glimmer there, right? Like, the reason it's not a Western concept but a human concept is, even though it may not exist at an organizational level or a corporate level, may not exist even at a nation state level. The question is, do you have friends that you love and trust? Of course you do. Of course you do. In other words, it works. Because that's all an organization is. It's a group of people who work together and they love and trust each other. Right? The reason we have work-life imbalance is it has nothing to do with yoga, right? It's because we feel safe at home and we don't feel safe at work. And so the question isn't how do we change the country? The question is, how do I take care of this person that I work with?